This podcast is not sponsored or supported by any business or organization. The views reflected on these podcast episodes are my own. Please be aware I am not a medical expert, travel agent, or any other kind of expert. Hey everyone, welcome to the Eat, Explore, Love podcast. I'm Ashley. This podcast is based off of my blog of the same name, Eat, Explore, Love. It talks about the unique challenges in traveling around the world when you have celiac disease. Due to sort of popular demand, I decided to also record a podcast to delve a little deeper into my travels and the lessons learned along the way. Please be aware this episode has a trigger warning. There are discussions regarding sexual harassment at the end of this episode. Please make sure to take care of yourself, and if you don't feel you're able to listen to this one, please feel free to check out my other podcast for the week with my friends Connor and Dylan from the Drama Podcast. If hearing us talk about theater is also not intriguing for you, just check back with me next week for another episode of Eat, Explore, Love, the podcast. So glad you're returning for another episode. I don't want my lesson for the week to deter anyone from the city of London. The overall goal in the messaging here is how when men are acting inappropriately, that's on them. For those of you that continue to listen on, please do so with an open mind. That's what we do here on Eat, Explore, Love. Food is not just an energy, it's an experience. I absolutely love going to London. I feel incredibly safe eating there. And this time going, I tried some other restaurants that I didn't get to try the first time I went to London. First up was going to Cream Dream, which was a really interesting little bakery. It's gluten-free, vegan, I believe also sugar-free. It's a lot of freeze. And the thing I found the most interesting about this bakery was that it's all Ukrainian refugees. And they even have little signs up that say, please be patient, we're still learning English. But if you want a way to be able to support Ukraine and the refugees that are escaping the war that's happening there, please go check out Cream Dream. It's really delicious. I really enjoyed everything I went there. And it was open at times that other bakeries weren't open. And I needed to grab some breakfast before I did my activities for the day. So I kept going back there again and again. And it was definitely worth it. Another place that I went and explored was Harrods Tea Room. I went there the last time when I was studying abroad and my professor put a little bon voyage experience together for all of us. Unfortunately, he wasn't so great about tracking if anybody had food allergies or not. So when we got there, I asked if things were gluten-free and the waitress was very annoyed with me and made me feel like I was being a burden by saying I had to be gluten-free. But this time, when I made my reservation, I made a note saying that there was a gluten allergy to please accommodate. And when I went to Harrods Tea Room to have this experience again, I mentioned what my experience was the last time, and I just wanted to make sure it wasn't that way this time. And the hostess was so kind and apologetic for what my first experience was and totally made up for it in this one. And she made me feel like an absolute princess. I went right when it opened and the whole place was empty. So I got to experience everything, I felt like Mia Thermopolis, where I was an American girl becoming a princess, where I could pick any table I wanted to. It was a bit awkward because the tables are so large. So when I had to be there by myself, it felt a little silly, but I enjoyed my tea and my scones and my crumpets and all the gluten-free versions of British goods that I had. And I read my book on my Kindle and had a really wonderful time. Definitely recommend it. Just make sure you give them 24 hours notice if you do have a food allergy. To move on to a different type of meal, I went to Honest Burger and they had gluten-free buns for their burgers, and it was so yummy to the point where I got paranoid and didn't know if it was actually gluten-free or not. So I had to ask and triple check and make sure, but it was so good. Indigo at One Aldwych was another place I ate at. It came highly recommended from other people that have celiac in the celiac support groups on Facebook. It was a little bit on the pricey side, but One Aldwych is a great hotel to go to if you have celiac. In their restaurant, Indigo very much has a great focus on having gluten-free food in a way that's safe for celiac, and it was delicious, the breakfast that I had there. Another place that I went to was Vita Bakery, and you could find that in the Brick Lane section of London. I really enjoyed Brick Lane, but that's for another time. I purchased every gluten-free cupcake they had. I tried every one that there was, and it was so delicious. Very much recommend you go to Vita Bakery if you need a gluten-free bake shop. I saw a lot of really fun theater in London, one of them mainly being Cabaret, which was my favorite. If you get to see it in New York, which is coming in the spring of 2024, or if you get to see it on the West End, it was absolutely incredible. But we're not going to talk about that here. We're going to talk about some of the other fun things that I got to do in London. I went to Royal Albert Hall, and I'm going to be honest, the theater nerd in me really wanted to see this because of Phantom of the Opera's 25th anniversary concert with Sierra Boggess, what took place at Royal Albert Hall. I love that production of Phantom of the Opera. It's actually the only production of Phantom of the Opera that I like. So I went to go check out the location that it all happened in. It actually is really interesting. I think if you're not a theater person or enjoy live performance so much, it's still really interesting to go check out Royal Albert Hall for the history of everything, as well as all the different events that they do there. They even hosted a marathon in Royal Albert Hall, which was really interesting. So just hearing all the different things that they can do there, totally worth going and checking out. This is not an advertisement for them, but through Get Your Guide, I booked a couple of tours that I'm about to get into. So one of them was a walking tour in combination with Churchill's War Room. I really liked the walking tour, and it gave me the history of the city that I had never gotten to learn before. I also, through this tour, got to see the changing of the guard. I don't really know why people are so obsessed with seeing the changing of the guard, but it was interesting to go see. I really liked walking around the city and being able to learn the history of all the different locations. Churchill's War Room I went to for my grandfather is obsessed with Churchill. So I went to go to be able to have a bonding experience, to be able to tell him about that location. I really enjoyed Churchill's War Room. I'm not so great in museums like this. I'm not great at standing for long periods of time. I always keep moving. So I would make sure that you are someone that would be willing to spend some time there, because there's so much there. There's so much to explore. But I still appreciated it in checking everything out and getting to see and walk the halls, that so many important people that are the reason why the Allies were able to win World War II happened in those very halls and in those bunkers. So if you're a World War II buff, highly recommend you go and check that out. Now, as you found out in the Liverpool episode, I'm a huge Beatles fan. So obviously I had to do the London Beatles tour, which also did a trip to Abbey Road. I've already been to Abbey Road. I even wrote my chorus teacher, who also contributed to giving me my love for the Beatles, on the wall outside Abbey Road alongside my name. I don't know that this tour was worth going and seeing. It felt like I was really stalking out Paul McCartney because of the different locations that we went to. It's places that he currently could absolutely be in. So I felt a little creepy about that. I feel like you could just go and see Abbey Road on your own. I don't know that you need to go and experience the tour. A really cool experience that I also did through Get Your Guide was Buckingham Palace, the staterooms. I got to go inside Buckingham Palace and see all the rooms that you see on special occasions like christenings, weddings. Anytime you see anything involving Buckingham Palace, I got to go to those rooms. They also don't let you take photos in there, which I really appreciated. It meant I was able to actually be in there and enjoy and take it all in, as opposed to experiencing it through a screen or people being obnoxious and rude and not being accommodating or respectful of others because they're trying to get their shot. So it was nice to be able to just take it all in and experience it. I did not know that this is even an option, so I highly recommend you go and do this experience. It was probably one of my favorite things I've done in London. Another thing I did, which was a last-minute addition, was going to the Sherlock Holmes Museum. I am a Sherlock Holmes fan in that I watched the Benedict Cumberbatch version of the show. I don't know that that made me enough of a Sherlock Holmes fan to be able to appreciate the museum. I do think if you're a fan of the books, the museum is really for you. Another tour I did through Get Your Guide was the James Bond walking tour. I don't know that it was actually a James Bond tour. It was really another version of a walking tour for general London history. And then every once in a while, you'd get a fun fact about a James Bond movie. So I don't know that it was worth the money I spent to go and do this, but I think if you are the ultimate James Bond fan and can answer all the trivia questions, then maybe you do this in place of the walking tour. But if you're not the ultimate James Bond fan, definitely recommend you just do the walking tour. I did the James Bond tour thinking I would get all this new knowledge about the movies and how they were made throughout the city of London to be able to go and share it with my grandfather, who is a huge James Bond fan, and it just wasn't that. So take what you will with what I just said and make the decisions yourself. To have this difficult conversation with me is a special guest and friend of mine, Sarah. I met Sarah at our job, and we became very close friends within 2 work trips. Beyond our work, she has become a personal friend of mine as well. She is kind of the wizard behind the podcast and the blog, Eat, Explore, Love. She has been my greatest advisor. She also designed the artwork for the podcast icon that you see as you go and listen. She has read every blog post to ensure they made sense and has listened to most podcast episodes before they go out into the world, just to make sure they're okay. Both professionally and personally, I rely on her guidance in putting my best foot forward. When this situation happened to me, she was one of the first people I spoke to talk me through it and get to the other side. I know that you're going to enjoy and love Sarah and hearing her talk as much as I do. If you want to know more details about the situation, please visit the blog post on hieatexplorelove.com. But hopefully, if you've gone through something similar or worse, this conversation helps you get through to the other side and know that it's not your fault and you are not alone. For those of you that have not gone through this situation or know someone that has, I hope this conversation provides you some insights on how to not be so judgmental and how to help your friend or loved one get through this and get through the other side. So without further ado, here goes nothing. So, Sarah, welcome to the podcast version of Eat, Explore, Love. I explained in my parts that I've recorded prior to you joining me that you are basically the wizard behind Eat, Explore, Love, that you designed the lovely artwork that we have when people go and look at the podcast. You've read every blog post, and you quickly went from coworker to best friend in a matter of 2 trips that we took for work. So I felt that you were the best person to have this tough conversation with. Not that you were there, not that you went on this trip with me, and we'll do that in the future. We'll do those podcasts soon in the coming months, but you were the best person that I trusted the most to have this conversation with. So thank you for doing that very much.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for thinking of me. I'm sure it felt sort of natural just because of the, all of the background planning we've done on this, on Eat, Explore, Love. And, I think that this specific episode is great to kind of join you on, because I remember just talking with you about your trip and debriefing like this, the London trip, what happened on it, the good, the middle, the maybe not so good. I think I got to debrief it almost real time with you. So I think it feels natural to kind of come along and really capture, what our true thoughts are and feelings about like all of the happenings on the London trip.
So I guess a good place to start is to explain what happened. I feel like I've been building this anticipation throughout the podcast. If anybody wants to know the specific details of what happened, I did write about it on the blog post, which you were instrumental. I wanted to be very careful in how I wrote about the situation. I know that there's some family members of mine that are not going to be as supportive of me putting this out in the internet, let alone putting this on a podcast in addition to that. But I knew we've gone through other situations like this, gone through worse than this. And this was something that was easy and manageable to talk about, where it wasn't too personal, but gets to the bit of it of the core problem of I don't want women to feel alone. I don't want anyone to feel that it's their fault. That is the message with both the blog post and with this. So again, to go through the situation. So I had to be a little bit more proactive this year in my Christmas presents, because it takes a very long time for things to get shipped from Europe to the States. So I bought all my family members all the gifts from Italy, from Dublin, which I had gone to, and from the UK, and packaged it all up and felt that London was the best place to send everything from. So I found this little shipping packaging center that I went into, and it was a very small shop. It was just me and this one guy that was working there. I realized fairly quickly that he was American, and I'm American, obviously. He's from California. I'm from New York. So we started chatting and having a natural conversation. And for those of you that don't know, if you're shipping anything from Italy or Europe to the States, you have to fill out a lot of paperwork for it to get through customs. So I had to fill out all the paperwork. So as we were chatting, I was filling it out, and I had a claddagh ring on my finger, which, if for those of you that don't know, it's an Irish traditional ring that has a lot of symbolism and a lot of meaning behind it. And this podcast is coming out after Christmas. So I bought myself and my sisters for Christmas these claddagh rings with our birthstones in them. And it was something that I know my oldest younger sister, and I have wanted for years. We were waiting for boyfriends to get them for us. The boyfriends never got them for us. So I figured, while I'm in Dublin, what a special thing that I'm going to get the sisters this claddagh ring. So I had that on my finger because I wear it every day. I have it showing that I'm single. I have it facing the direction where I'm single. I have it because you wear it on different fingers in different ways, and it means different things and different messages. So I had it of I'm single and willing to accept love is where I had it on my finger. So so he could see it as I was writing, and he made a comment about it, and he said, "Oh, you're engaged." And I said, I am not engaged. And he said, but that ring is an engagement ring. I said, in fact, it is not. And I explained what it was. And I took it off my hand and I showed it to him, and explaining how, I was living in Italy, half Italian, half Irish, all that other stuff. Gave me back the ring. I put it back on my finger. And he said, oh, you're half Italian, half Irish. And I said, yeah, it makes for an interesting temper, I think I said. Something along those lines. And his response was, oh, so you must really spank your boyfriends then, huh? And I write about this in the blog that, again, this is not the first time I've been in this situation, so I knew what my body was going through. I felt my body's adrenaline pumping in a way that was slowing down time so I could figure out as quickly as possible what I had to say in response, what I had to do, observing my surroundings of who was around, how much do I stand up for myself, how little do I stand up for myself. And I decided, because it was just me and him in the store, the best and the safest thing to do, but also communicating how annoyed I was by his statement, was to scoff and go, and he went, oh, well, that is frightening, by that response. And before I could get my response to him to say, because that was inappropriate, before I could get that out, a couple walked through. And I quickly finished up the paperwork while he was talking with them. I slipped it in whatever it needed to go to be sent out. And I said, do you need anything else from me? He put everything, packaged everything up, finished that up. I had already paid, luckily, and I was just able to go. And I had tears welling in my eyes. And I feel like people mistake tears for weakness. And it's my body's way of letting out emotions and releasing everything, because otherwise I will hit something. It's my safer response to stuff, to feeling any extreme. Instead of being physical, I just cry and let it out that way. Better than throwing a punch. And I immediately looked down and said, what am I wearing and what did I do that made him say that? And I think that piece of it is what makes me feel so strongly that this is something that needs to be analyzed and spoken about, is me feeling like it was my fault, that I must have been wearing something that made myself look suggestive, or I must have been too flirtatious with him to make him think it was okay. Which, by the way, if anybody has ever met me for more than 2 seconds, I dress like a schlub. I was in my sweats. And I wasn't wearing makeup. I had my hair in a messy bun, probably greasy because I probably hadn't showered. And I don't know how to flirt. So I don't think I was, if it was coming across flirtatious, it wasn't intentional. I'll say that much. So I texted you and I texted our mutual friend Kira about it. And I talked enough for this. What was your response when I sent you this scenario?
Yeah. I remember we were on a call, and I think we were on a call, and you got to that point, and I just remember saying, well, the biggest thing is, isn't it interesting that when something like this happens, and it definitely happens to all of us, no matter how we look, whether we were or weren't flirting, why does it have to go from 0 to 60? Why do you have to go to the bedroom, or why do you have to go to you must really hold the reins, why does it have to go that way? Is that really supposed to be a compliment? But, it's interesting in those situations, to get to my point, it's interesting in those situations that internally our first reaction is to look inward and say, okay, what did I do wrong? What am I wearing? What was I thinking? Did I smile at him too big? Did I do this too big? Did I do that too big? What did I do wrong? And that's the interesting moment, right? It's why, what's happened either in my past or what happens often within our environment, within society, overseas. Literally, it's not even just in America, it's not just confined to the U.S. border, right? What about that makes me become the target for the issue? Not only for somebody to say that, but also for me to look inward and say, oh my God, what did I do wrong? And I thought that was that was an interesting kind of situation to kind of stop and say, okay, this is my reaction to it, but why is that my reaction? Why am I blaming myself for this?
Right.
What, and like what, recognizing like all of those emotions that come along with it, not only looking at yourself and blaming yourself, but looking at what's happened in my past or your past or whoever's past to say, what's happened to me that makes me have that response? Because of course there's not much we can do, right? When some random person decides to say something like that, sure, they may not know, but also like, I don't know, is it really, how do you prepare yourself for those situations? Unfortunately, that's kind of some of the way that we have to think about it, is how do I make sure that, I'm ready for me to be myself and be happy with how these situations make me feel, and how do I move forwards from it. Even if it's small, I can still rehash stuff that's happened in the past. Some things happen to everyone, no matter how big or small. So I think that was that's the direction our conversation really started to dive into.
I hope she doesn't mind that I share this on this forum, but I had a conversation with my grandmother and I said, listen, I was very nervous of what her reaction was going to be for this podcast. And I'm very, very close with my grandmother. And all growing up, the reason why I dress like a schlub, the reason why I don't put too much care into my appearance physically is how she raised me to be. And I am saying it as if it's negative. I don't wear makeup. I don't do my hair. I don't wear nice clothes. I don't put the emphasis on that because of how she raised me to be. And I'm very thankful for that for a number of reasons. But I think the negatives of when, as she was raising me with that in mind, or from that mindset, because she is the only person I have ever met where nothing like this has ever happened to. And she's under the understanding because she dresses conservatively and she just doesn't engage. And part of me also wonders if things did happen and she just didn't realize that that's what was happening too, because she's a very sweet person and believes the best in everyone. But her and I had a tough conversation in the lead up to me recording this. And I said to her, I don't really want to hear your negative feedback, because I know she believes, because she's of a generation, it's not her fault. Society up until the Me Too movement said, well, the first questions that cops would ask women after they were raped are, what are you wearing? What were you wearing? And why were you out doing whatever you were doing at the time it happened to you? Why, as if to blame her for why that happened. And I brought up the point to my grandmother of, you know how I know it's not about what I wear? Because it's happened to me 9 times out of the 10 that situations like this have happened to me. I was wearing conservative clothing. I was covered up. I wasn't dressed nice or doing anything. And it happened. Those are the times where it happens to me the most, actually. And I also said to her, I had a worst case scenario happen to me. I did have some people's worst case scenario, and we don't need to get into that because that might be too much information for people, and the point can get across without me delving into that particular story. But after that happened to me, I said, you know what? I did what society said I was supposed to do for this to not happen to me. I didn't date around. I dressed where no one saw anything. I did everything I could to not be flirtatious with others, and it still happened to me anyway. So you know what? In college, I had a great body. I felt confident in my body. I'm going to show it off because that might be gone one day. And I'm tired of men's bad behavior and them not being able to look inside themselves and be able to control themselves to be the reason why I can't feel confident and show off what God gave me. Of not, obviously I'm not going topless and walking around. I'm being appropriate, but I could still wear tighter clothing, and I could show off that I have, wear things that make me feel good about myself and good about my body. And when I started dressing like that, no one ever messed with me. No man made any comment to me. Isn't that interesting? I never. Yeah. So I dressed the way society told me I wasn't supposed to dress. Never happened to me during that time. Now that I'm back to being like, oh, I'm not confident in my body anymore, I'm not whatever, I'm confident in myself and I carry myself in that way, but I'm not confident in my physical body. And now that I'm back to dressing like a schlub, it's happening again. So
here we go again.
Yep, exactly. I think during Me Too, we did a movement. We did a really great job as a society psychoanalyzing ourselves. But then it became about, then it kind of turned into cancellation culture, which then turned this into something different. And I want this to remain the thing of, men, you're not bad. Not all men are bad, but men need to start being more introspective in my mind. Being like, what makes me think talking to women like that is appropriate? Do I have a bad relationship with my mother? Was I raised in a way? You know what I mean? Like all the things that we do when it happens to us. Yeah. I would actually love to talk to a man that has done it to a woman on purpose or on accident and see if they have any feelings of what happens afterwards. Yeah. I have no idea.
If they
I've never actually asked.
Yeah, who knows? Do they psychoanalyze? Do they know? Do they think, well, I didn't grow up with sisters, so I just don't know how to navigate this? Or, I would never say this to my sister. Well, it turns out you don't have one. What is it that that makes it that way? Or what about, just societal relations make it, much more typical for guys to talk to each other that way, and then maybe by proxy talk to, women that way too. I don't know. But
that's an interesting point.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I wonder too sometimes if it's that, but it's really probably comes down to each individual person. And then, I'm sure too, the collective, right? How do we all hang and talk to each other, and how do the bros hang out and talk to each other? And how does that translate to like how they think they should, conversate with people?
That's a really interesting point of, do men talk like that amongst each other, and that's what makes them think it's okay to talk to females that they don't know as well that way? Again, maybe we should have had a male in this conversation to ask.
Yeah.
But I haven't noticed that correlation. I have noticed it maybe with, now that I'm thinking about it. What a great point, Sarah, because as I'm thinking more about it and the men that I know, the more I'm like, yeah, I am noticing that. But again, it's all familial, so it's different. I don't know how those same people I'm thinking of in my head would talk to people they don't exactly know, if they would do it the same things
Correct.
And think it's appropriate behavior to strangers.
I mean, if it's familiarized, I'd love to know, I guess twofold, of the people that the guys and the people who make those comments and those conversations where you're strangers, do they have sisters? Because I would argue that maybe perhaps if they did, the tone might be different. They might not go as far. Or, for example, and this is going to be very stereotypical, but, coming from America and going to college, we all know that type. Those guys who maybe perhaps have a very tight group of other guys, maybe perhaps they're in a frat, but they don't have to be. It's not always that stereotype, but I'll say it. You know how they hang out with each other. There's this sort of, it's not just like, they're hanging out and they're bros, but they're willing to take their jokes and their banter to another level, oftentimes to sexual levels, sometimes to a degree where, like, if somebody's not comfortable, even another fellow guy, right, if they're not comfortable with that, it can be extremely uncomfortable for even some of the guys, right? And like, that's how some people just like to hang. I'm sure there's some psychology behind it. I'm sure, it's just how, like, us as a society and like our different, genders and the hormones that are driving that make us act. But there's definitely a distinction there when you see certain guys hanging out in certain groups. How do they talk to each other? And maybe somebody's just by proxy. Maybe they're not somebody who really drives the conversation there, but they still see it happening. They still see, guys talking about guy stuff and hanging out and talking about women, like how do they do that? And does that translate to their, relationships with society, as in their one-on-one interactions with strangers? I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thought.
I looked up, how do you know if you've been sexually harassed? And I went to, I found this website, kidshelpphone.ca, and it says different ways of being sexually harassed. So sexual harassment can include inappropriate staring, telling sexual jokes, showing or sending unwanted sexual pictures, cartoons, or other sexual images, demanding hugs, dates, or sexual favors, asking questions or talking about someone's sexuality, sex life, or body, making unnecessary physical contact, including unwanted touching, using language that puts someone down on the basis of their gender, spreading sexual rumors, threatening to fire or punish someone if they don't accept sexual advances, stalking, which is behavior that makes someone feel unsafe, including unwanted visits, phone calls, texts, emails, or letters, leaving gifts, or watching someone's home or school. So for this instance, it was the telling of sexual jokes. That falls under sexual harassment of what happened. So I have a right to my feelings and what happened, and that it was inappropriate, and that it was uncalled for, and there's a name for it, and it's sexual harassment. So I guess a big thing too is, what can you do? Because obviously what you wear and how you speak doesn't make a damn bit of difference in my mind. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I think so. It's situational.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything
of everything that comes together to make that happen.
I don't think walking alone at night makes a difference. It could be during the day, it could be during night, it could be in a place where you feel safe, it could be in a place where you don't feel safe. None of those factors to do with a woman's choices in these matters, or men, because men can also be sexually abused, sexually harassed, they could be raped, they could go all through all of these things. The victim or the survivor is not asking for it. And their top recommendations of what you can do is be informed, keep a record, tell them to stop, address it, contact emergency services, and above all, remember it's not your fault. So for me, Whoopi Goldberg, as Sarah knows, I love The View. I watch The View every day. And Whoopi Goldberg always says, every time this topic comes up, she says, you need to tell, even if you don't want to report it, you don't have to, but tell 3 different people that it happened around the time that it happened. Tell them the story. And then if you change your mind and do decide to report it, you're able to have witnesses that were like, yep, she told me, we have a record of it, we texted about it, the phone call is in the records right here, I heard her say that this is the story. And then 3 different people can give the same story separately without corroborating with each other. Chances are there's more validity, because with so much with these cases, it's so much of he said, she said. Bolden your case, do yourself a favor, even if you don't want to report it at the time, tell people. Tell 3 different people. I like Whoopi Goldberg's rule of tell 3 different people. That seems to be.
In some regard, I wish that I watched that or I had known that. Not just because, hey, maybe I may not have reported anything or anything like that, but I wonder if even just being able to have that space where you can share your story and what's happened to you and how you feel about it and process that with 3 different people in your circle, that alone can be so helpful to understand and process. Is what I'm thinking okay? Does it feel okay? Am I in the wrong? Because those are usually the thoughts that come up, like, why did this happen to me? Am I in the wrong? Did I do anything wrong? Definitely, I just think it's really sound advice, honestly, whether you choose to report it or not. It helps you take care of you and you be in charge of how you process things. And sometimes, even if you're nervous about it, talking with people who are close to you can really help, because then you are seen, you're heard, they understand, oh, okay, I know something's happened to you, even if big or small, they can be there to support you so that you don't have to just navigate this all by yourself and alone.
Yeah. And another thing I completely agree with what you said. Another thing that they say is if you know someone that has been sexually harassed or abused, the correct responses are, I'm sorry this happened. It shouldn't have happened to you. And I'm so glad that you're sharing this with me. The not appropriate responses, don't let them have the power in you crying about it. Don't tell your story in public. This is a private matter. One of those things was said to me. Both of those things have been said to me. My problem with that is, and hopefully this provides people a different perspective, if this ever happens to people again, they have felt like they have no control and they're already blaming themselves enough for the scenario. You don't have the right to tell them how to deal with what happened to them. You need to let them control their experience and control their emotions and feel whatever they need to feel to put them back in their own power. Because they don't know I'm crying. So if that's how I'm dealing with it, it doesn't embolden them at all. But what it does is let me release my emotions and allow me to get to the next step. And don't tell your story in public. It's a private matter. It wasn't a private matter to that other guy because he felt the need to do whatever he wanted to do in public. You know what I mean? Like, that's silly. And again, you're taking away control from the person of what happened to them. You're once again being yet another person to remove the control of a situation from them. I felt so passionately about it, I shook the table, which might get picked up on the microphone.
I mean, it's worth being passionate about, It's definitely just recognizing, like, really, if you're concerned as a friend, if you're like, oh, I just want to make sure that whatever they do in their healing now, they don't regret later, which, sure, I get it. I've had friends bring that concern to me before, and they've, of course, said it in the wrong ways. But, maybe perhaps instead of saying it in a way that's like, don't do this publicly, you don't want to do this, why not just say, hey, how would you like to take this forward? How would you like to, what's your solution to it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That wraps up all my questions. Is there anything else that you want to add or say that I didn't think to include already?
Yeah, I think it's at the end of the day, just know that you're you because of all of the culmination of you and everything you've been through, and that's okay. And whatever has happened to you or whatever might happen to you, no matter how big or small, it's not your fault. And however you need to react to that is also more than okay. Just know that, there are people in your life that are there for you. They support you. And even if you feel like you're alone in the matter, we're here and we support you and we know you and we see you through that. Yeah.
And I just want to reiterate what I said earlier in the podcast, but yes, to what Sarah's saying is very important. You are not alone, and it is not your fault. It doesn't matter what you were wearing. It doesn't matter what you said to him. It doesn't matter if you needed to walk to the grocery store at night and couldn't do it the next day for whatever multitude of reasons. It doesn't matter whatever circumstances that got to the point when you were in a situation similar to this or worse. It was not your fault. And do what you can to complete yourself and to make yourself whole, because that's all the control that you have of the situation. And I hope that anyone listening to this that has done something to someone or has had to be the friend in the situation, that they have better resources or a different perspective in how they approach it, of maybe let's not judge the female in the situation, or male oftentimes. Let's judge the person that did the act and what they did, because they were in the wrong. It is their fault, bottom line. Because regardless, if without that man's behavior, then it would just be a cute girl in a cute top. You know what I mean? Also want to reiterate something I said earlier in the episode, that Sarah and I are not mental health experts. We work in a creative field. This is not our expertise, other than we just have, unfortunately, the experience of knowing what it's like to go through something like this. So although I am happy to hear people's stories if they care to share them, there is nothing I'm able to do to help them as a resource. What I can do is tell people to go online and look up their local establishments that are out there and resources that are out there, and encourage people to go to therapy, encourage people to talk to their friends and the people that are close to them and love them, and do it that way. Because I know that there's a tendency that when people start to talk about this more openly, that they become the resource and people feel that they are the experts. We are not those people. Although we are happy to listen and tell you it's not your fault, there's not much we could do for you beyond that. Please go and see the experts, because they're going to be way more beneficial and helpful. And hopefully this conversation, really what it's here for, is to make you feel less alone and empowers you to go and do what you need to do to help yourself. Okay. Do you want to do the wrap-up questions with me,
Yes.
even though you didn't do any of the other parts of the episode?
Yes, let's do it. Ready.
Have you ever been to London before?
Yeah, I went to London, I think about 6 years ago. Went to some amazing climbing gyms out there. For those of you who don't know, I love to climb. So definitely very much, worth mentioning. There's some good climbing gyms out there. Shout out to London climbing gyms. But yes, it was fun going to London, but I can't wait to go again someday.
Yes, and there might be a little something in the works for us to do a London trip together. As I say with my bad British accent. Okay, so I ask the same questions at the end of every episode, so here's my wrap-up questions. Do I feel the city is safe for the... by the way, all that we just talked about is no reflection on the city of London.
100%.
It is a great city. I love it, and the people overall are great. This situation happens everywhere. So, okay, back to the wrap-up questions. Do I feel the city is safe for those with celiac? I do. I found a lot of different places to eat. There is a future blog post to come about the places I went when I was in college. So, and I have the places that I ate this time around, and I felt like I had more variety this time around, actually. Had a good time. What was my favorite place to eat at?
It's tough.
Every time I come across this question, I'm like, what a good question I ask myself. I think my favorite place that I ate at, not necessarily because of the food, but because of the experience, was having tea at Harrods, and they were able to accommodate it and make sure it was gluten-free. So that was my favorite. And I'm trying, if we get to work out, being able to go together, I'm hoping I can drag you along with me, because I spoke about earlier in the podcast how it was such a bummer to have to go by myself. Yes. And if we get to go, you'll see why. So yeah, let's do that.
It's a date.
Perfect. Favorite memory from the experience? The theater I saw and the staterooms, the Buckingham staterooms. I loved being able, Buckingham Palace staterooms, excuse me. I loved being able to do that. It was really cool. When you listen to the episode, Sarah, you'll understand why I feel it was really cool.
I mean, I know part of it since we got to like brief along the way, but I can't wait to hear about the...
When you went to London, what was your favorite experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think some of it really was just walking around London, just seeing the buildings, seeing the history, the heritage. I think one thing that we had wanted to do was go to the I believe it's the National Portrait Museum, and definitely correct me if I'm getting the words mixed up, their order. But being an artist, being an artist, that's something that I always wanted to see. So I'll have to make that happen. But yeah, the most memorable moment is just really walking down the streets and just seeing how that looks. You know, it was my first time out of the country. You know, the U.S. looks like the U.S. and you dang well know, you know, you just got to Google a picture. You know what it looks like. It's not like London by any means, even New York. New York is New York, but London it's just seeing the feeling that you get when you're there. Yeah. Walking down the streets is just so fantastic.
And what I love about London too, that I don't really see many other places, is they have these blue circle plaques on the buildings to tell you who lived there, if an important moment in history happened there. I love that. I love that they do that.
So cool.
Is this a city to vacation to or live in? I feel like both.
Both, I'd say too. Yeah.
It's the one city I have felt like I could live, like I would move in tomorrow. If I could live anywhere in the world, it would be London. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you probably love where you're living, so you probably don't feel.
Yeah, I'm a bit of an outdoorsman, so I think for the outdoorsy person, I don't know if I spent enough time there to know. But I think nonetheless, even if you're into hiking, mountaineering, you know, just being outside all the time, this is a city that's worth going to, even if you're not a city gal or a guy. It's something worth visiting.
Is this a place to relax or be active? I think be active in a sense that it's a city, so you're walking all day long. Not exactly the kind of active that you do in your mountaineering, but I don't think it's the city that you're sitting back and relaxing and chilling and taking it all in.
Mm-hmm. There's so much to see.
Yeah.
You gotta walk around and see it. It's just, even if you have a small bucket list there, you're still walking all over the place.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. Then you get to see all the fun little nooks and crannies.
Yeah. Someone said to me, they're like, oh, I'm doing a weekend trip to London. I'm like, that's not possible. You can't do that. It has to be at least a week. At least. And that's never enough time.
Yeah.
So I feel like because I spent a month there, and then when I went back, I spent a full week. Now I feel like I've covered my bases. Like now I feel like I could do a weekend trip. But anywho, how were the people? I feel the people were very similar to New York in that they are city people. They keep their head down. They mind their own business. They kind of do their thing. They're not overly friendly people, which is fine by me.
Yes.
So those are...
I'd say same. I'd say, I think from I went to college in the Midwest and I live in Colorado. So, you know, there's a bit of a different vibe in the middle of America. For those who don't know, maybe it's a little more hunky-dory. Not everybody's like this, but kind
and you say hello. You gotta wave. You gotta have those conversations with strangers that turned out to be 15 minutes. London's definitely not like that, and that is okay. That is more than okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are the questions every week. Sarah, thank you for joining me. This is the first time that you're on the podcast, but it will not be the last. I know you and I have a lot of things in the works for this podcast, for the blog. But if there's anything in particular anyone wants to hear from Sarah again, just reach out at hieatexplorelove@gmail.com.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining.
Happy listening, everyone. Thank you so much.
Till next time. I'm so appreciative that my friend Sarah was willing to have that conversation with me. If you have your own story, please reach out to the appropriate resources. I am always willing to listen to anyone's story, but please be aware I am not a mental health professional. If you have been sexually harassed, assaulted, or abused, please reach out to the experts in your area. They will be able to provide you long-term help and care. Regardless of whichever route you take, please remember you are a survivor. You are a beautiful person inside and out. You didn't deserve what happened to you. It was not your fault. And I am inspired by your ability to put one foot in front of the other. Thank you for joining me this week for all the fun journeys and lessons learned on my big adventure called life. For more information on the different cities discussed, check out the blog posts on hieatexplorelove.com, posted every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you have any questions or fun stories to share, feel free to reach out at hieatexplorelove@gmail.com. Until next week, remember to eat well, explore the world, and love yourself. See you next time. This episode is produced, scripted, and edited by me, Ashley. Special thanks to Sarah Mientka.